environment that we have, so there is a term that we have coined in academics, and some of you may have heard about that term. It's called BANI, B-A-N-I. So BANI is an acronym which stands for brittle, anxious, incomprehensible, and non-linear. So this is a step forward from VUCA. We used to have that volatile and uncertain and all, but now the situation is brittle, incomprehensible, it's not linear, how there are no causes, what are happening. So in this kind of a scenario, it's become very difficult for industries and organizations to survive and to lead. So the topic that we have for today is that in this kind of a scenario where the pressure is so high on survival and leading the industry, what happens when a market starts rewarding bad behavior, right? So bad behavior, probably something which is not really ethical, something which is like forced upon us because some shortcut somewhere to bring about this thing. So let's start this discussion to understand how these bad behavior or winning moves in the softer terms that we call, that how does it quietly poison a category or an industry? And if you have any examples of bad behavior in your respective industries, so we can start with that and then probably take on from this thing. So you would like to start? Yeah, please.
Yeah, sure. So before I jump onto the topic, I thought I'll touch the favorite subject today, IPL. So most of us, if not all, we watch IPL. And I was looking at the points tally, RCB as the top. So when we think of RCB, there's one player that comes to mind, Virat Kohli. Any idea who's Virat Kohli's favorite player? Ben Stokes.
Okay.
Why? Because every time a batsman hits a 6 to an RCB bowler, and when on the next delivery, if that batsman gets out, Virat Kohli remembers his favorite player and he says, if you read his lips, he says, Ben Stokes. Would we call Virat Kohli as a bad behavior guy? Maybe yes. Look at his aggression. He never minces his words. But then, as a part of that aggression, what are the characteristics? Look at his ability to energize the team. Look at his leadership skills. Look at leading from the front. Look at the focus on each and every aspect of the game, batting, fielding, bowling, etc., etc. Now, when we take this to the corporate world, and when I said IPL, today in the corporate scenario, your startup world is no different from a limited over cricket match. You start a company, you go to some investors, they put some money, they typically have a 3 to 5 year horizon, something similar to a T20 or a 50 over match. What are they looking at? They're looking at X times return on their investment. Similarly, even the promoters, they're also looking to multiply their factor. To give you an example, sometimes you start on a very positive note, but then on your way, something puts you off the track. Brilliant example, Blue Smart. It created a revolution in the industry. People were really looking forward to actually, depending on the Blue Smart. We as an organization tied up with Blue Smart to get into, that e-energy and carbon footprint saving. And then one fine morning, because of the greed, etc., the entire e-vehicle ecosystem collapsed. Now, was that greed? Was that ambition turned into a greed? We don't know. There are multiple examples like that. So, does the bad behavior reward the industry in the startup context? Yes. Are there risks involved? Obviously, when you want to grow faster than the universe, there are going to be slippages, and that's where us as finance people, our role comes as the keepers of governance.
So, would anybody like to add something to this? Yes, please.
So, from one finance guy to the other. See, I believe that bad behavior being rewarded is a wrong business model. The business models have changed so much in the last 20 years that it's no joke. I don't know how many of you are aware which is the most valued company in the Brazilian stock market. It's a bank. And what is the unique feature of this bank? It doesn't even have a single physical branch.
Oh wow.
So now the most valued banks in India, you would have seen their videos that folks are being shouted at, but it's a wrong business model. Since you have deposits, which is a liability for the bank, they're forced to lend exactly the same amount, otherwise there'll be a mismatch in their revenue and profit. So there is a saying, banking is a must, but banks are not. Have the banks evolved to adapt to this new model? Maybe yes, maybe no. So the root cause of the market rewarding you is only based on bad metrics, not having balanced scorecards, having archaic business models, and then you get sucked into it because at the end of the day, the market rewards perceived action. So you're forced to lend. There are many other examples. Blue Smart is one of them. It's not a listed company. But even if you look around the listed space and compare the PE multiples of what is there in India versus overseas, India is still by far the most valued stock market in the world. So is everything right? No. And is the ecosystem catching it? I mean, are the auditors catching it? The answer is clearly no. So how do you make sure that this bad behavior, while being recognized for the market, doesn't really happen? You got to empower the people to speak up. How many companies in the board meeting ever have a board member differing? You pick up the results. I mean, it's there on the MCA website.
So does it ever happen that in an industry you have top 2-3 guys who control the major share, and then they kind of throw a little this thing into an action, a bad behavior, and then the others are forced to follow because they are top guys, right? So any examples of that?
So
Yeah, I mean,
it is subjective. Like, it depends as an organization what you want to preach and how you want to set your values. There's a very famous theory of Kant's theory, says maximum good. So, I mean, there are certain philosophies every organization stands on. And just to be in competition with a market leader, and if we are compromising our ethics or our values, we may, very soon drown somewhere. And it was also subjective, like Sir mentioned, bad behavior of Virat Kohli. So what people are perceiving bad behavior as. It could be a behavior which is like a teacher, like you, if being strict or being harsh to your student, they may call it as a bad behavior, but that is, somewhere grooming that person. So it also depends on what you perceive as a bad behavior and how much harm it is causing to your own people or to the market that you're functioning in.
yeah. I think just adding to her point, I think from the perspective of leaders following certain or inducing certain bad behavior in the market and everybody is forced to follow, I think the perfect example is quick commerce. There was never a need for this 10 minutes quick delivery. Today, you are forced to do 10 minutes quick delivery even if the demand wasn't there, because you are forcing a bad behavior from customer point of view, the trends and the patterns, and everybody else has to follow it. Otherwise, they are left behind, either under the business model pressure or by the pressure of investors or the boardroom. So that's kind of a perfect example in my view that bad behavior has been rewarded again and again. Valuations have gone up, even though the business model is incorrect. We see a lot of stale food coming in. We see a lot of breakages happening. We see a lot of supply chain being disturbed because of this, and a lot of pressure being put upon our resources. But still, it is being rewarded in terms of valuation, in terms of the adoption that we are having. That's one. Second, I think from the edtech perspective, this has been again a very prominent example, knowledge as a service. In the education field, there was a company called as Chegg. I'm not sure if that was there for long or not. It has recently shut down. But firstly, the rise of Chegg as a knowledge as a service company, where it used to have experts coming in to help students doing their assignments. Was that ethical? Was that a viable business model? We can debate a lot, but still it was rewarded, it was listed, it had given jobs to a lot of people. So was it good, bad? We don't know. But when the knowledge was being exposed with the help of LLMs, with the help of chat GPTs of the world, it suddenly crashed. Now, again, bad behavior was being promoted, but something else led to its downfall because it had a bad business model supporting to what Sir said. So from that perspective, I think two things: customer behavior, which is changing and which is being forced by the big players, and second, bad business models, which are leading to this. And third aspect I would suggest is technology in itself. Technology is allowing us to propagate bad behaviors and reward bad behaviors very quickly because of the exposure that we have today. And I come from an AI background. I look at different topics, different products that are being built. You can quickly induce biases. You can quickly induce any sort of cultural nuances and the brand positionings getting diluted. So it's very easy with the help of technology to induce such kind of bad behaviors into the market and then influence what's happening around you. So I think that's there. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes. I think
I'd like to add.
we'll go with him first. Sorry, he had.
So great. I think great point. But I'll tell you, I'm in the telecommunication business. It's a highly commoditized business, and there are a few players in the market which are very strong. And I wouldn't call a lot of things that we talked about as bad behavior. Getting 10-minute delivery is not bad behavior. It's convenience, right? For some people, it might be bad behavior. But in the telco and commoditized space, imagine there is no difference between the product that you sell, anybody sells, it's highly replaceable. And then you have one player who comes in, wants to take market share and reduces the price to no end. So you have an opportunity, you decide that, okay, you'll follow that model. And therefore you sink because you have no profitability left. And then there's pressure on costs and everything. The second is you don't do anything about it. Let them take away the customers. Therefore, you lose market share. And the third is that how do you really address the situation here? And that situation, addressing the situation comes from innovation. So you build a moat against what your commoditized product is. And I'll give you some examples as well. The second is trust. So bad behavior in the last 3 or 4 years that I've seen in this industry was never rewarded. It could win a sprint that you have the 6 months, people enjoy that price, but then they lose out on trust because for that company to make money needs to do something about the price, and then they'll use selling data, or they'll do something else, or they'll do fake deliveries because they have to make money at the end of the day.